This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
Well, too many times in the more than 2 decades that I've done this show have I come back and said, well, hello, it's a sports show. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk, and it'll be inane. And I think the first time where it was like that was after 9/11. And Glenn Guilbeau of the Gannett News Service is my guest. And he, of course, has been through all these things together with me in some form or fashion, you know, through that or maybe Katrina and other things. And I remember after 9/11, coming back, we missed a week, and then we came back and got on the air. And I remember telling everybody, you know, this might be the first show you're watching that's not really serious. You know, it's not news content.
Right,
and,
right.
You know, in this case, with all that's happened with the flooding in Baton Rouge and surrounding areas, you've probably watched the Olympics. You've probably had all the local coverage of that you can take to some degree. But in some ways, it feels weird coming on and talking just about sports and having the goofy fun that we always have.
Yeah, and maybe refreshing to some people, but you know, the local news stations were just on around the clock, you know, and you could tell that starts to wear on them.
Boy, just the patience that they've had to have. I mean, I'm a WAFB watcher more than the other 2 stations, although WVLA I've had on a lot because of the Olympics and all the NBC stations. I mean, going back and forth, and you know, flipped over to WBRZ occasionally, and they're on the air so long. I mean, their concentration and their butts had to hurt. Yeah,
and the radio people really do a good job. I was listening to like Hannah Griff and you know, the sports guys were doing news yesterday, and Hannah Griff's a natural at it, and Kevin Ford was on, and they were actually taking calls, people asking, how can I get to this place, and Ford's got the map out and telling people how to get from point A to point B. I mean, I think media now is so much more public service than it was maybe just a couple of decades ago. The Lafayette Advertiser is like a relief center right now. They're loading supplies into vans and bringing them around the town, you know. It used to be they just people would just put out their paper or their show. Now they're really helping people, you know, on a simple basis.
Now we're taping this on Tuesday, and you'll see it on Thursday and then thereafter. But I mean, as we talk to you now, it's still, pardon the pun, fluid situation. Yeah. But water seems to be receding.
In most places it is.
Yeah, where we are here at the Cox Building, which is Florida and Lobdell in Baton Rouge, as you drove up, this area is totally dry, didn't take on any water, but not that far away, just a little bit down Florida Boulevard, that all changes.
Yeah, and at least we haven't had a lot of rain since, you know, yesterday was pretty dry, so that should help. But I understand there's more rain in the forecast. But
yeah, but back to my original point.
Terrible though.
Yeah, back to my original point, coming back from these terrible events, and then coming on and doing a sports show. There is this element of I don't know. I mean, I'm not a climatologist, and I can't tell you anything about. I mean, I don't own a boat and couldn't run one if I had one, you know. But I have tremendous admiration for how many people came out with boats and have helped people, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, that the first time I really heard about that was when Hurricane Betsy hit New Orleans in the early '60s. So many people. Medium income and lower in these areas have boats. You know, you think of boats in other areas as a yacht or some rich person, but really people who don't make a lot of money have boats. And everybody has a boat, you know, so everybody can go save people. And you see that happening in these storms. But, you know, and I think the thing that people want after something like this, Katrina, 9/11, this, is that they want to get back to their routine. You know, that's really sacred to people, and sports here is a real big part of the routine. So You're doing something good, Lee.
Well, thank you, Glenn. Well, but I mean, you know, we when this all started, and over the weekend, I talked to Eric Coleman here at Cox 4, and it's like, you know, what do you think? Are we going to be able to get in? And I should tell people too, this was, I think I said this last week, that this show was going to originate from LSU Football Media Day, which was going to be Sunday. Let me back up a little bit. So Friday last week was my birthday. And what an incredibly, thank you. And Glenn had one not too long ago as well.
Right.
And
Wednesday.
Yeah. But what a weird birthday, because number one is it rained for, all 24 hours practically of it, plus longer.
And it was weird because it never rained hard. It was just a
it
constant
did
drip.
Yeah, see where I was, where we were, there were times where it rained so hard I couldn't believe it. But you're right.
For the most part, it just never stopped. It just stayed over you.
Yeah.
Just kind of Chinese water torture. Just constant drip, drip.
Yeah. Kind of like one of our bathrooms when we found out there's a little bit, but that's another story for another day. Not, there's a little roof leak somewhere, and the water's finding its way into one of our bathrooms, and only when it rains sideways. But whatever. Anyway, so Football Media Day being canceled and Fan Day, that's a really big deal for a lot of people. And I mean, not just for the fans and Fan Day. Our Football Media Day, there are a lot of media outlets that count so much on gathering up things from that event, the local affiliates for one, for the shows that they do, and it's the only time you get to talk to freshmen in some cases.
That's true, and for the most part, you get enough access throughout the week that you don't need that as much as you did in the old days with the media day. But yeah, it is. I was hoping to talk to Drake Davis, Lester Earl's son, who's a true freshman, very talented player, and probably won't get that chance unless they reschedule the media day, which I think they're supposed to, but they haven't yet.
Well, let's hope. All right, hold that thought. Let's pick it up with what we would have done at LSU Football Media Day when we get back. He's Glenn Guilbeau. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's the new and improved, semi-shorter version of Sports 225, which you can also watch at Sports 225 TV on YouTube. Go to sports225.com for all the show airings. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College, and I really encourage you to come out to our 12-acre campus here on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge.
Contact ITI to enroll in our Construction Management Associate and Occupational Studies degree program. Learn to plan, coordinate, budget, and supervise construction projects, and collaborate with engineers and architects in the residential, commercial, industrial, and heavy civil construction industry sectors. Call now about this new, exciting career degree. ITI Technical College. Begin your journey to a better life.
All right, we're back on Sports 225, one that you were supposed to be seeing originating from LSU Football Media Day, but instead I'm in studio with Glenn Guilbeau, who was kind enough to come out of the bullpen, and we were talking about that before we left, the opportunity to talk to some of the kids who you wouldn't normally talk to, and
Sure.
Me for one, I want to talk to Colby Delahousse,
Right,
because
that
I
was
always
gonna
start
be-
LSU Football
right.
Media Day with the special team guys. It's always a lighter approach, but in his case, gosh, he's in a car wreck that killed 2 other people.
Right.
Right.
And he hadn't been made available before that. But I talked to Michael Bonnet right before Media Day because they were thinking of having him not at Media Day and just kind of one time to talk about the wreck and that's it. So they may still do that or they may have him at Media Day. But yeah, great kid, Colby Delahousse. He's back in the running to be the starting kicker this year. And, obviously something he's going to be thinking about for a long time, what happened.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the concept? So many schools don't give scholarships to kickers and punters. They just bring them in. LSU at times has done it, giving scholarships.
Yeah, they get
to
it for
different people.
1 year here, 1 year there.
Yeah,
maybe.
you don't bring in a punter from Australia without giving him money, for example.
Yeah.
But
and fullbacks don't get scholarships often. They usually come in as a walk-on.
Really?
But, yeah. There's fullback is not usually a scholarship like it was. The Stelts, he was not on scholarship till his last year at LSU, and there's been some others. I think Connor Neighbors wasn't on scholarship his whole time.
well, is that maybe one of the reasons why that Miles kid who was a fullback went somewhere else?
I don't know. That surprised me. That's his third kid that hasn't come to LSU. I'm sure he'd like for one of them to come because the other son is at North Carolina and the daughter's at Texas. But no, and fullback is not as significant a position as it was, with the spread offense and the passing and everything. But I think you need to be careful just not giving scholarships to kickers, though, because that's really important. And they lost a kicker because they were saving a scholarship for Trevante Valentine and Trey Domingue left. That was your starting kicker last year, so I would have think they could have redid the numbers. But Les was like kind of trying to keep him on scholarship, but he got upset. And that happens sometimes. That's how he lost that lineman to Kentucky a few years ago, but he came back.
College version of salary cap issues.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah. But so where I was going with that was, do you think that major schools should simply put kickers and punters on full scholarship and include them in one of those positions you've just got to fill, or do you think that's a good strategy?
Well, I think that, you should have at least one kicker and punter on scholarship based on their recruitment and how good they are. Like if here's a good kicker over here in Arizona or Washington or something, you go get him, you better put him on scholarship. And then after you got 2 on scholarship, then bring in some other guys. And I think that's largely what they do, because Connor Culp is on scholarship, a kicker from Arizona. And then the backups would be walk-ons, and if they earn the job, then you give them a scholarship. But once they're on scholarship, I think they ought to stay on it, instead of taking it away. Like Colby was on it, and then it was taken away. So that's just a numbers game, though.
They run into that in a lot of sports. I mean, there's a lot of scholarship manipulation, not in there's so-called head count scholarship sports, which are, like for example, basketball, volleyball, golf, tennis. One player, one scholarship at the fully funded schools. But then in the other sports, specifically like at LSU, baseball, softball, soccer, track and field, hardly anybody gets a full scholarship. They get portions of it. It might be books, it might be tuition, it might be room and board. I mean, however, they break it down and they spread those out over a lot of people. And so there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of
And the funny thing is, when your kids do really well in school, that hurts your scholarship numbers, because a lot of if everybody passes, then you're short a scholarship. Whereas if you have the usual 1 or 2 flunk out, then you get that scholarship. I never forget talking to Skip one time, and I was asking him about a player coming in, and he's going, well, we need somebody to flunk out. and really, Les needed somebody to flunk out this year, and he could have kept Trey Domingue. You hope that's not a great player, but that's what happens. Sometimes they hope that third string linebacker has a little trouble with science.
Well, they got that concept, what is it called, gray shirting?
That's a way to manipulate the numbers.
Right, remember Dale Brown one time, and he and Don DeVoe, when he was coaching at Tennessee in basketball, and they got into it over signing more players than they had. I think DeVoe say that Dale signing too many players.
Yeah, because DeVoe couldn't recruit.
Right, but
he didn't know how to recruit.
It's unethical,
so yeah.
And then Dale told them that divorce was unethical.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a great comeback. That's the kind of comeback that shuts the other guy up.
Yeah, and then. But Dale would. I asked him one time. I go, what are you doing? You only got X number, and he goes, these things always work themselves out.
And they do.
And they do, don't they?
And Trent Johnson had the DeVoe philosophy, and it hurt him. I mean, he would go a whole year with signing a kid. And I never forget, Eddie Sutton said, I'll bring in 5 new players every year if I have to. Of course, didn't work well for him. But no, at that time, you got a scholarship, use them. You might find somebody.
When we get back, Glenn Guilbeau and I will name drop a little bit because of the aforementioned floods and stuff. We both heard from friends all around the country, and we'll tell you a little bit about what we told them. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
It was nearly a decade ago that Brett teamed up to Imagine Your Parks, and you imagine big. 12 beautiful community parks from one end of the parish to the other, 1 family-sized water park, and 5 other parks just for your dogs. You have places to splash and places to explore. You have games to play and camps galore. No matter what you like to do or see, visit Breck.org and see how together we have made Breck better than imagined.
Anytime. He must be hungry. We're back on Sports 225. I'm hanging out with Glenn Guilbeau. He covers LSU and other things for the Gannett News Service. And by the way, what, Glenn's man cave?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? Are you holding your cell phone out like this?
Hey, that's the best way to get Sam, man. It's like a throwback to the old independent movies, basic stuff, man.
I was surprised your mouth and the voice were in sync.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. You're not being invited to my man cave.
No, well, I want to give you a little, technology help maybe when we're done.
I don't want it.
Oh, you want it to
No,
just look like that?
This is like independent filming in the late 80s.
Okay.
That's what this is.
Tell people how they can go see
Tigers
it.
this week is a little 5-minute show I do every Monday, just me. I'm going to have a guest occasionally, just talking about LSU that week, and we're going to be doing it on site at times, like in Green Bay and so forth. But I was going to do it from Media Day with Brandon Harris, but that got changed. So I did the first one in Shreveport at the car dealership, Mark Abair's Town and Country, your Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer. And we did that on site in Shreveport. And they're the sponsor. And then I did one from my desk in my office, and then I did the other one from the man cave because Michelle had the TV too loud.
I would tell you that when you're out and you see tourists with them, especially like in New York City, you should take their selfie sticks and break them in half and then probably hit the people with them. But in your case, a selfie stick wouldn't be the worst thing because you'd have a little bit better control.
Oh, okay, yeah, I might go to that, but I like the basics. We tried that tripod thing, but it didn't work. It reminded me of the War of the Worlds, like that thing does right there.
Yeah, like a TV studio. Oh, geez.
Yeah, that stuff's going away, man.
So
Back to the basics.
I'll tell you who I heard from this morning. I've been very fortunate that I have friends all over the country, and they care and they're worried. And of course, they don't know. They just think they see what they see on the news.
And they think everybody.
And it's like I'm very fortunate to live in an area that's didn't flood. It wasn't dry by any stretch, soggy because it rained like hell. But Eddie Fogler, the former Vanderbilt and South Carolina basketball coach, who was, we've been dear friends for so long.
Eddie Fogler
was so
funny. He's a big Tiger Rag magazine fan.
Is he?
Yeah. He well, I'll just tell you real quick. He naturally thought, like a lot of people, that was like an arm of LSU.
Right.
Until he started reading it, and one time he read an issue, and every columnist was ripping Dale Brown. He goes, "God, this is a great magazine."
First time those two ever coached together was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'll try to keep the story brief, but LSU played at Vanderbilt, and it was Shaq's freshman year, I think, and Eddie was the new coach at Vanderbilt, and somehow he and Dale got into it. And you know how the coaches, they had to run to mid-court for this thing, because the benches are on the end lines. And when the game was over, Dale stuck his hand out to shake Eddie's hand, and Eddie was just, bleep you, Dale.
Wow.
And he stuck his hand, bleep you. And I mean, it was just, all out. And the reason I know this too is because from the press box, you remember at Vanderbilt, it's like 5 stories up. You're a dead man by the time you walk up there. You're so tired. Yeah. But I had the binoculars, on him, and then I asked him about him later. And it was just a hilarious exchange. And they're all cool.
I like that either because I think that one year Vanderbilt beat LSU here with not nearly as much talent like in the Shaq days. And then they went back and played Vanderbilt, or maybe it was in the SEC tournament, but LSU beat them bad. And Fogler was very complimentary of Dale, and he was mindful of the criticism Dale took in the game before. So I always liked Eddie for that.
And then it started out him and Brady having a big, almost a near fist fight recruiting down in Orlando, Brady's first year, and then they're the biggest, best of buds. Oh, yeah. Back when coaches had personalities and got after it.
Well, that's how coaches are. They're like the bully in the neighborhood. You get in a fight, and then you're best friends.
Right, exactly. From the SEC, I heard from our friend Mike Strange, who's a sports writer up in Knoxville.
There's you probably got like a list of guys you only hear from after hurricanes and
life events,
natural disasters.
Right. Yeah.
I remember hearing from a lot when that train derailed near Mobile. You remember that in 1993?
Oh, yeah.
That was a terrible thing. I had just gotten to Mobile, and Mike Strange called me about that. But then hear from Ted Miller after Katrina. He's an ESPN guy in Arizona. Used to be in Mobile with me. I heard from him today. So there's those folks you hear from, and from like grade school too, with Facebook.
I heard from one of my dear friends who I grew up with, two people from New York and one from New Jersey, and then Bob Ryan who from Boston, and Charlie Pierce. Do you know Pierce? Pierce is crazy as a loon.
I know.
But
Charlie.
what a great writer, and so funny. He writes for Esquire, and we were great friends. And Dave Jones, who we both have as a mutual friend, a columnist from Pennsylvania. He writes for PennLive.com, but on Facebook, I don't know if he put this on PennLive. His dog died. His dog Rocco, a German Shepherd, who was a cool dog. I've stayed at Dave's house up in Pennsylvania and knew Rocco, and I'm telling you, we all suffer terribly when our pets die, but this piece is a really, really good piece. You read it, didn't you?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard about it, though.
It's really, really good stuff. Yeah, Dave's good. So it's that's anytime there's a tragedy, you hear from people. Joe, I saw somebody recently at a funeral, and he goes, "Man, I haven't seen you in such a long time." I said, "Yeah, we're at such an age where we see each other now at funerals and weddings."
And disasters, you hear from them.
Yeah.
But the pictures of Livingston and Denham Springs, they did the overview picture of the water. It reminded me of that first overview shot of New Orleans after Katrina, man.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. You don't realize how much water can pile up.
Well, my analogy was we had a hurricane without the warning
Exactly.
or the wind.
Yeah, and much slower, just a slow.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more sports and natural disasters in a minute. We've only got a little bit of time left on the show. It feels like it goes so fast now that we're not in the.
That's what happens when you go from an hour to 30 minutes.
It is, it feels like half the time. Glenn Guilbeau's here. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's Sports 225.
For Total Home Pest Control, who are you going to call?
Call the Bug Man, 923-BUGS.
For total pest control for your home or business, call the original Salvat.
Call the Bug Man today, 923-BUGS.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, and Glenn Guilbeau here with me. Thanks to John Williams from JCW Productions for directing the show. You want great video, anything digital, go to jcwproductions.com. It's almost football season,
Yes,
and
it
of course
is.
you're out there all the time watching LSU practice football because
They close
when
it,
you
but,
can, yeah. And then of course you do interviews. What have you learned? What have you learned this August?
Well, I think not that much because you just knew they were going to be good with the returning players, but I really think the Trevante Valentine addition could really help them at nose guard, and then they'll be able to put Devon Gottschall at tackle because he was going to be the nose guard, but they also have Rashard Lawrence, a true freshman, so they're getting pretty good on the defensive line. That Christian Locatore, that's going to hurt though. They lost him as defensive tackle, but they still got Lewis Neal on that side. They just look pretty good. I mean, I think this is the best they've looked going into a season since they went into the 11 or 12 season. They looked really good going into 12 until Matthew was kicked off the team. But I just think this could really be a good year. And if Saban continues to have one of his roughest summers, maybe by the time they play them, they won't be as good as they usually are.
Do you have any ethical issues with the Valentine re-signing, so to speak?
Well, a little bit, but they've brought back worse guys than that, and like Jeremy Hill, did more than him, and they brought him back. Jordan Jefferson did more than him. He has a misdemeanor, disorderly conduct arrest is all. His main thing is that the coaches couldn't get him to work. Just kind of laziness and messing up, kind of like Paraloo in a way. So if he can straighten out, and plus, Les is competing with Saban, and Saban's not exactly Father Flanagan either. He's bringing a lot of guys in who shouldn't be there. So you kind of got to do what you can do, I think.
It's not intramurals for choir boys, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Your writings appear at LSU Beat.
When I'm not doing a video in my backyard.
Exactly, LSUbeat.com.
LSUbeat.com is no longer. They switched that. Yeah, it was working too well, so they got rid of it. LSU Beat Tweet, theadvertiser.com, WWLTV.com, and USAToday.com. You go to NCAA football and spanning the SEC. That's where all my stuff is. That's really the best spot to go. But and every Monday, Tigers This Week.
Tigers This Week. And where should they look for that?
On all the websites, all the Gannett websites,
Okay,
and the USA Today
All
website.
right.
So,
And luckily
yes.
for me, a regular guest.
And on LSU Beat Tweet.
Yes, LSU Beat Tweet. At Lee Feinswag, if you could possibly care what I say or think, but nonetheless. Hey, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Go to sports225.com for all the show listings, and tell your friends who don't get cable and get Cox 4 CST to watch the show at sports225.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Lee Feinswag. Good night.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, That's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die. Poetry was everywhere, sweet music filled the air, and just then she glanced my way.